Husker Nation, one of the cool things about my job, I can't believe this is what I do for a living, is I get to talk to current players, former players, Nebraska football legends, and today I'm joined by one of the greatest to ever do it. This man was a 9-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champ, 3-time national champion, 2-time consensus All-American, Lombardi Award winner, first-round draft pick, and also had his number 98 Nebraska Cornhuskers jersey retired, Mr. Grant Wistrom. We have a great conversation. We discuss the run defense, how to get better at it, the pass defense, what the defense has done well, John Butler, Terry Braden, 4-3, 3-4, 3-3-5, all this good stuff. You're not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned, Husker Nation. Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. If you're looking forward to hearing what Nebraska football legend Grant Wistrom has to say, smash the like button. And if you want more unique content like this, and if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and or ring that notification bell as always. And at this time, I want to bring on our special guest, Mr. Grant Wistrom. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Adam. How you doing, man?
Dude, life is good. I appreciate you taking the time. You told me you're on the way to the gym. Now, you used to own a CrossFit gym. You're on the way to work out. How's life back in Lincoln been treating you since you moved back last summer?
It's been busy. We took on a remodel project from 6 hours away, and that was supposed to be done by the time we got here. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And just wrapped that up. Soccer season with our daughter. The time has flown since we've been here.
So I assume somewhere in there you've been able to watch a little bit of Husker football, and obviously that's what we want to chat about here as well. But talk to me about the defensive side of the ball. What have you seen from the Black Shirts? What have you seen from the defense so far this year?
A little undersized up front, but obviously everybody knows how well our secondary is playing. Having trouble against the run. But I do feel like last week, as a team and defensively as well, I felt like that's the most complete game that they've played. Not exactly where we want to be, but definitely head in the right direction, I think.
So talk to me about stopping the run, because a little bit of that has been stopping the running back run. Some of that's been the quarterback, whether it was the Cincinnati game, whether it was the UCLA game. I know from my experience, but talk about your experience, containing the quarterback can be just a gigantic pain in the rear while you're also trying to rush the quarterback, play the run, play action pass, all that good stuff. In your opinion, is it more trying to contain the quarterback? Is it more the straight up regular runs that they need to improve on? What are your thoughts there?
I feel like it's the quarterback, just scrambling, buying time, extending plays. And then also when, it's 3rd and 8 and we give up a first down on a quarterback scramble. And, and anybody that's played defensive line, any good defensive lineman knows that sometimes you almost have to sacrifice your pass rush to maintain your rush lanes when you're facing a quarterback like that. And it's not always about maybe getting to the quarterback or hitting him, but keeping him in the pocket. Because a lot of those guys, they don't want to stay in the pocket. They want to get outside. So sometimes it's just a bull rush, just trying to keep the guy in the pocket and letting the secondary do the work. Sometimes that's as good as a pressure, a sack, a batted ball. I hated facing a running quarterback. It's always nice to know when the guy's coming back there about 7 yards deep, but the way the game's going, you're facing a lot more of these guys. So maintaining your rush lane is vital when you're facing a quarterback like that.
I always knew anytime we were facing a mobile quarterback or a running quarterback that weekend, defensive coordinators and D-line coaches were going to be freaking out all week because they knew it was so unpredictable come that weekend, and they were freaking out about getting after the quarterback. Talk to me about actually stopping the run, because we are a little bit young. Lighter up front. I think we have 2 guys that are listed right at 300 pounds. There's only 1 senior on the entire 3 deep. So these guys will have another entire offseason in the weight room for next year, a whole bunch more experience. So you look forward to next year, you wonder how good they could be. But as far as right now, what are you seeing in the run game that they've done well and they need to work on?
At times, I think, they've got good gap integrity and everybody maintaining their gap, but I feel like they're not playing with their hands enough. They're not getting the offensive lineman extended, pushed off of their body so then that they can shed that block, stay in their gap and make a tackle. And, that doesn't come down to size. Adam, it's leverage, it's angles, and, we may be a bit undersized, but if the guys do a good job of playing with their hands, you can negate a lot of what comes along with being an undersized defensive line.
It's funny you talking about getting your hands and locking them out, because the offensive linemen, as you know, they want to grab you and they want to get you in close, because then they can honestly just hold you without it being called, but they can do a lot of things. So how do you think they can do that a little bit better as far as winning the hand placement battle inside hands and also locking them out so that they can shed and get off the block?
That just all comes down to practice and drills, and they've got a great D-line coach, and I'm sure he's working with the guys on it. Just some people, it doesn't come naturally to them, and it just takes time on task and going out and doing drills where your strong arm or your weak arm, where if that guy does start to reach, you're extending that outside arm and running your feet to your gap so you keep your hips in the gap. Or it's emphasizing 3 points of contact. I always use my head as part of as a weapon out there, and trying to get my hands on the guy and my forehead on the guy to just jolt him and jack him back as much as I can. So you get that guy on his heels, and then you've got an advantage. You can control him a little bit better, but you got to really explode into the guy and make contact with him and just press him off of your body.
I talked about the pass defense, elite. I'm not even going to say great, but elite pass defense. Maybe the best in the country, definitely top 2 or 3. What do you think has helped make them so good when it comes to defending the pass? And I'll be honest with you, the USC game, I think, was really the game that solidified, hey, we've got an elite pass defense.
Yeah, and I think that all comes that we've got a great secondary. Our pass rush is, okay at times. So those guys have a lot of time back there having to cover people. So, I think that just comes down to our secondary just being a solid group of players who have been coached up, that go out there every week, and they play dang good, man. I'm with you. They're a lot of fun to watch out there.
So it's interesting because I pointed this out. Sometimes a great pass rush can help cover up for a struggling secondary, which is not what we have. But when it's that much harder because you haven't been able to go after the quarterback as much as you would like or prefer to this point in the season consistently yet, how much more impressive does it make how the secondary has played so far this year?
We would be in trouble if we didn't have our secondary on defense, because obviously our pass rush isn't great all the time. And so those guys have a long time back there that they're covering guys. And the fact that they can keep them covered up and still allow us to get pressure and still have the stats that we do, pass defense wise, that I think that all goes to our secondary. You go out there and you play as 11 men and as a unit, but they're definitely the strongest part of that unit out there on the field.
And now I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction, our longtime partners, because they do phenomenal work. Nobody is better when it comes to concrete work and retaining wall expertise. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. If you need concrete work, retaining wall work done, and the like, go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, if this is the type of work you do and you're looking for a good employer and a good job, Jason Armstrong is the guy you want to work for. Again, check them out at dpsconstruction.net. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors and good partners, Husker Auto Group. Check them out at huskerautogroup.com. They have new GMC Sierras at 20% off of MSRP. 2025 Chevy Silverados, 20% off as well. New 2025 Escalades in stock with $5,000 off of MSRP. Call Husker Auto Group for details. That number is 402-479-7500 or visit huskerautogroup.com. All trades accepted. Financing available with APR financing as low as 0%. 2025 models going fast. All new 2026 models are arriving daily. All right, talk to me about tackling. What have you seen? Because there's been times we've looked decent. There's been times you want to see a little bit better tackling. What are your thoughts on the tackling so far this year? And what are the ways that you guys used to make sure that you were solid when it came to tackling in games?
Well, I think the tackling's been better than it has been. Still has a little ways to go. I think, Nico made us look foolish a couple times last week, running the ball where we had him. Probably could have stopped a couple first downs had we made better tackles. But pursuit drills, man. Pursuit drills are everything. And I know that you hate them as a player, but if you can get 11 guys, because you're going to face people that make you miss from time to time. But if you have 10 other guys hustling for the football, you're going to make up for that. And I don't think that's an issue out there. I think the guys are hustling. I think the guys are working and trying to get to the football. But, that's how you make up. When you're facing a guy that's elusive, whether it's a quarterback or running back that's going to make you miss, that's how you negate that, is by getting 11 guys flying to the football.
Man, there's a common theme, because I asked Amon, I said, hey, as a running back, what made your life harder? He's like, when there was 8, 9, 10 guys trying to tackle me. You're saying the same thing. And even when I had Coach Bush on a couple of weeks ago, he talked about several things, but getting many, many hats to the football. In other words, kind of gang tackling type mentality, so to speak. Have you had a chance to chat with defensive coordinator John Butler or the defensive line coach, Coach Braden, at all? Have you gotten to know them at all?
No, I've met him, had a couple conversations with him, but nothing in depth.
What are your thoughts? Because I get asked this all the time. Adam, 4-3, 3-4 defense, 3-3-5, hybrid defense, what kind of Nebraska's running this year. Like, what are your thoughts on these schemes? And I don't know, what are your thoughts? Because my thoughts are, whatever you do, because I've seen them all succeed, I've seen them all fail. just be really, really freaking good at what you do. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm a 4-3 guy. It's what I've always played in a 4-3. We ran a variation of it in high school through college. That's what I was playing in the NFL. I always played in 4-3. So that's all I know. And the high level X's and O's, I am not good at. I knew what I did and I did it really well. But as far as like being able to call defenses and, what's probably a better formation for us to go out there, alignment to go out there with, that's way above my pay grade. But I'm with you. They're all good, done correctly. And sometimes I feel like a 4-3, I like it more just because I believe it simplifies things and allows you to go out there and play aggressively. And we both know, and anybody who's played the game knows that when you're out there thinking, you're playing slow. So anything you can do to remove hesitancy and go out there and play with aggressiveness is going to help you in the long run playing defense. And 4-3 is just simple. Everybody's got a gap. Everybody controls it pretty much the same gap, based on your alignment, and just go out there and attack that gap and maintain that gap. So I'm a 4-3 guy, but like I said, that's all I know.
It's interesting. I played with an offensive lineman with the St. Louis Rams, Adam Goldberg. I said, hey, what do you prefer to go against? Now, he was more of an intellectual guy. He played at Wyoming than he was per se a physically gifted guy, and he would tell you that. He goes, I'd rather go against 3-4 all day because they're trying to outsmart you, and I can handle that. He goes 4-3. You got those freak athletes. He goes, Adam, I'm not built for that. So it's kind of one of those things where it depends on what you want to do defensively. Do you want to be a little bit more basic? Do you just want to attack, or do you want to come at offenses a little bit more different angles, different type schemes, trick them, dick them a little bit, whether it's 3-4, 3-3-5. So it's interesting because I played in the 4-3 for a long time. Then I played 3-4. So to me, I've seen them kind of like offenses. I've seen pass-heavy offenses work. I've seen them fail. Run-heavy offenses work and fail. It's what do you believe in, and then you got to roll with that. No questions asked. So, all right, man, talk to me because Matt Rhule made an interesting statement in his press conference on Monday. I don't think a lot of people paid attention to it, but for guys like you and me who've been in a field goal protection period and a field goal block period in practice, he said, you guys got to come watch this. This period is insane. Like, it's highly intense. And I thought back to our field goal protection and block periods. Those were some of the most intense periods in practice, 9-on-7, 1-on-1 pass rush. Did you have some pretty intense field goal protection and field goal block periods during your time at Nebraska and in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way you can get good at it is practice, going live. I mean, you can't go half speed. I mean, everybody's coming off 100 miles an hour in a game. So the only way to replicate that is go out there and do that in practice. And both sides of the ball have to have that. I mean, it's such a timing thing that you have to be going full speed when you practice that element of the game, offensively and defensively.
All right, man, talk to me. You look at Penn State, you look at Iowa. Penn State, I don't know what to expect of them. Top 10 roster, but what are they, 3-6 right now, something like that. We're recording this interview before the games are played on Saturdays, by the way. The interview is going to go out Sunday night. But maybe they decide to show up on Senior Day, but they have arguably the most talented backfield in the country. Katron Allen, Nate Singleton, and then you got Iowa, who's going to run the ball, and then run the ball some more. What are you hoping to see out of our defense these last two games versus Penn State and Iowa?
Just great team defense, everybody maintaining their gap, and that's vital when you're facing a good running team. And so everybody maintaining their gap, getting off blocks, and then running to the football. If we can get guys that will do that, you're going to have, they're still going to get their wins. They're still going to get their 5-6 yards, but you're going to eliminate those long runs if you get 11 guys running to the football. And that may be 70 yards down the field, shoving them out of bounds at the 5. But that's going to buy us another set of downs and another chance to win. So, these two next games, I think, are going to be their biggest tests. They're probably going to look a lot like the Minnesota game. Just an offense is go out there and try to be methodical about going out and just controlling the ball, just trying to keep consistent, long, sustained drives. And so we're going to have to go out there, have a few plays to disrupt it, get some turnovers, and put our offense in good field position. What
are your thoughts on the Matt Rhule year 3 so far? That's typically when he has a big jump, a lot more wins than the previous year. I mean, if we sit here, we're 7-3 right now. We could be 7-5. We could be 9-3 here in a couple 3 weeks. What are your thoughts so far to this point on Matt Rhule's year 3 at Nebraska?
It's going well. With outside of that Minnesota game, I thought the team has showed up pretty much every week. Sometimes I don't think we played our best and lost, but the Minnesota game was pretty disheartening. but that's a team I think if we play again, we beat. I don't think we were ready to go out and play that. And so that was a little bit frustrating. I don't feel that I was ever unprepared going into a game about what to expect. And I think we kind of knew what they were going to do to us. I don't know if we just had our head in the sand or what over it, but we knew what was coming our way when we played those guys. So that was a little disappointing, but all in all, I think the team is always on the upward trend.
So I've actually heard you talk about this. So I anticipate what you're going to say, but I want to make sure people who follow this show hear what you have to say, because everybody's motivation for playing is a little bit different, and that's okay. But I'm curious, when you played at Nebraska, what was it that specifically motivated you while you were representing the N?
It was Charlie McBride's always gave the same pregame speech: find someone to play for other than yourself. And whether that's, playing for Jason out there or Jay or, Jared, whoever's on the field with me, go out there and play for someone else. Might be, a parent in the stand, a coach that always supported you that's not at the game. Play for someone else always. Because if you do that, it's so much harder to take a play off. If you're playing, for the guy lined up next to you, in my heart, I believe Jason was always going to go 100 miles an hour. So if he's going to put forth that kind of effort, why am I not going to do the same for him? So to me, and I get to go out and talk to high schools now, and that's always my main point of emphasis is, play hard and play for someone else. Don't play for yourself. Play for the name on the side of your helmet, not for the name on your back. When you do that and you've got a whole team of guys doing that, playing for each other or someone else, that's when great things happen. And I was fortunate to always be part of teams that I felt like they played for each other and not for themselves. And I think especially in this environment with NIL now and guys trying to stand out and draw attention to themselves, that's even getting harder and harder to find. But when you can put together a group of guys that have that mentality, that don't really care about all the other stuff, that just want to go out and play great football and play for each other, you've got something special.
You led into my next question perfectly, because it's a different day and age. How realistic is that to try to put together a group of guys, and then if you're a coach, trying to put together a group of guys year after year that are similar like mindset to what you just described?
I mean, it's harder and harder every year. We're becoming more of a what's in it for me society rather than, what can I do to help other people out, unfortunately. So it's getting harder and harder. But I do think there are guys out there, maybe it's not your 4 and 5 star guys, that are going to be here for a year, then play a little bit, get some tape, and just start looking for the next biggest handout somewhere else. I would love to see a coach put together a group of guys that are, 3-star athletes, 2-star athletes, and I don't buy into all that anyway. All the ranking systems, I think they're a bunch of bull. And talking to people, lots of times, depending on how many of these combines that they have, or if you pay money to go to these combines, you're going to get a star behind your name. So, I don't feel that that's a great barometer of talent, but just find guys that have a chip on their shoulder and love to play football. Guys that that want to be at the University of Nebraska, not just because, we paid them $100,000 to come here, because they want to be here, that are going to be here 4 and 5 years, that are going to allow you an opportunity to build a team and not just go out and get a bunch of hired guns every year. I'd love to see a coach do that. I feel like Iowa, that's kind of their motto. And granted, that might not get you to a national championship game, but it's going to get you a football team that goes out there, plays for each other, plays for the university. And then you sprinkle in some stars in there, some real playmakers. And that's kind of was Coach Osborne's blueprint. We're going to get the guys with chips on their shoulder that love football, that want to go out and play for the University of Nebraska, play for each other. And then we're going to bring some other guys in to add some, a little bit more explosiveness to the team. And we had a lot of success that way. And, I feel that can still be done. And I think if you get guys here that want to be here just because they're getting to play at the University of Nebraska, you're not going to have to re-recruit your whole team every year. I don't know, man. That's just an old guy talking, but I'd love to see somebody try to do it that way.
I want to give a shout out to 6 to 6 Auto Service in Lincoln. Nobody does it better, ladies and gentlemen. Check them out at 6to6autoservice.com. They are located at 2405 P Street in Lincoln, locally owned for 2 decades, 20 years, ladies and gentlemen. If and when you go in, ask for Dean Phelps. He's the owner. He's a good dude. Or Eric or Jeff, and tell them that Adam sent you. They do great work at a reasonable price. nice. As you know, we now have kids who are driving, and it's where my family, my wife and I and my kids take all of our vehicles to be taken care of. Everything from oil changes to engine replacements. They offer shuttle rides, loaner vehicles, financial aid as well if needed. Again, that's 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. So I'm more similar-minded to you are, to what you just described. I recognize it's much harder to do that in this day and age as you do as well. I had a guy very, 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 very high up in the university. I'm not going to get the quote, so I'm going to paraphrase. It was the day after the Husker games. He goes, "These kids have just been rewired. Social media has rewired these kids." And that's not a shot. That's just what I was told. So that's always kind of stuck with me, but I've always found that interesting when you're trying to put together a talented group of kids, a group of kids that's going to work hard, and a group of kids that wants to be here for the right reasons, and trying to blend that all in. I'm not jealous of the job that Matt Rhule has to do. It is a challenging job, my friend. All right, last couple of questions, and I do appreciate your time. Now, we've got a pretty good field goal kicker, and we've got more coming in. But I saw the video of Charlie putting the ball, your daughter, through the uprights of Memorial Stadium. If Nebraska ever needed like a field goal kicker, like 35 yards or less, I don't know how strong her leg is. Do you think she could put it through for a game-winning field goal at some point if necessary?
I do. She's got ice water in her veins. She's done it obviously on a much smaller stage in high school, but she thrives under pressure. And she would. I don't know, like how crazy would that be if something like that could happen? Hopefully, we're never in that position that they're going out trying to recruit on campus for a kicker, but for her to have an opportunity, that would be unreal. But I think she could do it. Like I said, she's been in pressure situations before, and she's always shown out and done a good job.
She looked pretty confident in that video when you were with her inside Memorial Stadium. There wasn't a whole lot of flinching or doubting in her voice. No. I've got an 8-year-old daughter who the other day we're driving out of nowhere. She goes, "I want to play football for Nebraska." I was like, "All right, Jordan, we'll work on that. You don't know how the world will look in 15 years, so you never know." All right, I've interviewed you a few times, and I've always wanted to ask you this, and I'm finally going to get to it. You played in a couple of Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl champion. I remember when I first got to the Rams, like Torrey Holt, Orlando Pace, Steven Jackson, Mark Bolger, Isaac Bruce were all there. A lot of those guys were your teammates as well. And I remember Torrey, whose fingers are all jacked up, by the way, worst fingers I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how he caught a football or got his gloves on. He goes, "Hey, rookie." He goes, "The difference from preseason to the regular season to the postseason to the Super Bowl," he goes, "it's completely different." So I've always wanted to ask you, what was it like playing in a Super Bowl, and how different was it as you went through the playoffs and got to the Super Bowl itself?
The playoff football is the most amazing environment to ever be in because it's one and done, and so everybody is just on high alert because it's either, hey, we lose this game, we're out. So we had a saying, if we win, Super Bowl; if we lose, Super. Because at that point in the season, either one is acceptable. You've had a long year, your body's ready for a break, but you got to keep going because you're on you're almost there. So it amps up the energy and the electricity in the city during playoff football. It goes to another level, and each round you go through it just adds a little bit more to it. And then to me, it was almost like once you got to the Super Bowl, it almost crested and started to come down a little bit because you'd go to the city, a week ahead of time. And I did a really good job of just isolating myself and not going out. And, there's plenty of time to do that when that game's over with. So if you can go into it with a mindset of, it's one more game, it's just another game. Don't let this big circus atmosphere around it pull you out of your normal preparation and just go out there as business as usual. You can limit a lot of those distractions, but just the electricity, the energy, and everything else around you, you almost have to block out all that noise because it just does get to a deafening level.
Hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time as always. And ladies and gentlemen, I got my questions for you fine folks at home. They're brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Check them out at huskerautogroup.com. You can also follow Grant on the social medias. I know you're on X and Facebook. Anywhere else?
I've got Instagram too. It's all at my name, Grant Wistrom. But yeah, I'm not a huge poster. I'm usually just peeking up on other people.
A peruser, so to speak.
Yeah,
a peruser, baby. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm on X, TikTok, and Facebook. You can follow me as well. Here are my questions. Let me know your answer in the comments below. Number 1, what grade would you give Nebraska's pass defense so far this year? Number 2, what grade would you give Nebraska's run defense so far this year? And number 3, what's the one thing you want to see the most out of the defense our last 3 games of the season versus Penn State, Iowa, and in the bowl game? All right, man, you ready to throw the bones with me?
Let's go.
All right, go Big Red Nose. Remember,
Throw the bones, baby.